Hola, me chicos. This is MongoSlade. I am here. We are live, and I don't really have much to talk about tonight. Um, but there was a pretty good article that dropped. Well, there's a couple of articles I guess we could talk about. I'll probably save one for tomorrow. But the one I want to talk about today is from bodyslam.net, in which it's um, it's interesting because it's about an internet sensation. You know, that would be that would be interesting because it was one of the things I hadn't really talked too much about on this channel. But I think me, like a bunch of other people, we saw it, but we never paid much attention to it. But it seems that now the Ugandan wrestling company, Soft Ground something wrestling, has been exposed by bodyslam.net, and that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to get a little bit into that. Um, my goodness, I read the article while I was working out, and it's pretty nuts, man. But there's a larger lesson to be learned from this soft ground concept. I'm not going to read the whole thing either because it's actually quite long. But it was published August the 8th, that will be today, by Cassidy Haynes. And he actually did an extensive amount of research on this. So you got to give the young guy credit. He did a really good job here. And the long and the short of it is that soft ground wrestling Uganda is has been running scams, you know. So that's what's going on here. It's unfortunate, but there's a lot of this stuff that happens in wrestling. I wanted to try to make it a larger point about charity in general and how people's charity is often taken advantage of. So I guess that's kind of the direction we'll take it. But there's a lot here about wrestling companies and missing money and things of that sort. So let's get into this. The principal character is the founder of the company named Daniel Bumba, or what they call him, Daniel Bumbash, Bumbash Daniel, Daniel Bumba Cedric, and many others. So you've probably seen the viral videos of a bunch of African kids wrestling in mud, doing incredible athletic maneuvers with nothing but bamboo and rope, and everybody's having a lot of fun with it. So this is kind of a expose, not necessarily on the company, but on the owner, the founder, this individual. And it's interesting because it tells you about the rise of it, how people started seeing it online, and how British wrestlers and eventually WWE and former WWE wrestlers would go over there, like Mason Mansoor, would go and visit them because they were garnering so much attention. And then people started to give money. And this is almost always when things go wrong. Um, and this is the issue here. So it says, after seeing some soft ground wrestling clips on social media, an American teen, not named due to being a minor, reached out to help. Bombash quickly declared him the U.S. ambassador for soft ground wrestling, and a GoFundMe campaign was launched. The stated purpose was to raise funds for the purchase of a proper wrestling ring. The goal was to raise $10,000. The goal was exceeded thanks to some of the biggest names in wrestling. So people like Daniel Garcia, Will Ospreay, Jordan Grace pitched in money, and they pretty much exceeded the $10,000, from my understanding. So they started really applying pressure to this young man. And Daniel Bombosh essentially admitted to bullying the kid by saying, quotes, I guess they found a text message that says, I abused the fundraising volunteer badly. Once provoked, I became a snake. Apparently, the young guy lost some of the money in translation. They're trying to transfer US dollars to British pounds and from British pounds to Ugandan shillings, etc. There's an exchange rate, okay? And it was a complex system to get the money from the United States to Uganda. It took some time, and it was also very frustrating. So the young man instantaneously, well, instantaneously, that's the wrong word. He obviously got a little confused, and he was in over his head. And then it says here, several sources directly involved with the situation, including individuals no longer associated with soft ground wrestling, painted a picture of a young person who was trying to help a cause he believed in being strong-armed by Bumbosh. Text messages obtained during interviews for this story show that Bumbosh openly bragged about being pushy and abusive to the team, who was trying to help his peers from across the globe achieve their lofty ambitions as oblivious outsiders looked for somebody to point the finger at. He did not sugarcoat his treatment of the volunteer. And this is where he talked about abusing the volunteer. So the young man, who was apparently 16 years old, was trying to help this organization, but it ended up being a little bit more complicated than he was prepared for. And Bumbosh then put together a harassment campaign against this young man. So it says, as observers of the increasingly popular online sensation awaited the arrival of the money, the tone turned against those involved with the fundraiser, leading to an online bullying campaign that ultimately inspired amateur internet detectives to harass, stalk, and threaten the youngster who put the whole campaign together. That included private threats from Bumbosh himself, which understandably left the volunteer terrified. Despite all of this, the funds made it to the personal bank of the SGW founder. So Bumbosh got the money. He eventually got it, but not after they harassed the hell out of this kid. And some of the money still got snatched away from service providers, banks, etc. And the whole point of them putting the money together was so they can get a ring. That was the point. They wanted to get a ring because everybody felt bad seeing the kids get slammed around in mud and all that stuff, right? So it's unfortunate. So Bumbosh then decided there wasn't enough for a ring. So he said instead the money would be used to build an office and food storage area. It is unknown how much of this initial money went towards these goals. But an SGW source did note that those buildings had already been in place since at least October, months before the fundraiser took place. So he said, well, we don't have enough money for a ring. We'll just build an office. But it turns out they already had an office. So where did the money go? Oh, boy. So he talks about how some people were suspicious that it was a scam. Mason Mansour went over there to help raise money. They sold T-shirts and a bunch of other things. The point was to raise money for beds, mattresses, 6 months of food and water, and a van so the group could travel. Various people like Sean Ross Sapp got involved, Shane Strickland, Justin Wang was a YouTuber, Mojo Rawley, Evil Uno, Mustafa Ali, Donovan Dijak, Joe Hendry, Nikki Cross, etc. So he basically had like one of those old telegrams for soft ground wrestling, right? So they raised $40,000. He said after raising $40,000 with the initial intent of buying a wrestling ring, soft ground was still quite literally in the mud. The following month, the top WWE superstar is Cody Rhodes. I don't know why he framed it this way. It says Cody Rhodes offered to buy them a ring. So, and he wanted the ring to be built locally, so the logistics of it could be taken care of. Essentially, enough of this whole us sending money to Uganda. Let's just let them build the ring in Uganda, and that way we don't have to buy a ring and all that stuff, right? And he says they now had the money, a legitimate square circle on the way, and a solid core of international fans who wanted to see what might come next for the unlikely crew. Then we get into Bombosh lying about various things. We'll get into that in a second. AJ3 has a question. He says, wasn't there also a voodoo woman wrestler that to where she cast a spell on a guy to win a match? I believe so. They did a lot of outrageous things over there. They was doing a lot of outrageous stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a voodoo female wrestler. I don't remember reading about that. But they did a lot of outrageous things. So that might have been one of the outrageous things that they did. But they seemed to be having fun. That's what attracted everybody, is that it was a bunch of kids doing hurricanranas in the mud. It was supposed to be fun, right? So in this part, we get into all the Bombosh lies. One of the lies was that they were going to run a 50,000 seat stadium. Soft Ground Wrestling was going to run a 50,000 seat stadium. He also announced a television deal with NBS Sport. So he's telling everybody they're going to be on TV, and they might be running a stadium at some point in the future. Now, if you've ever seen clips of this company, it's a couple of people standing behind a yellow rope. How are they going to go from that to 50,000 seat stadiums in literally a couple of days? Nothing happens that fast. Nothing moves that fast. It was obviously trash, right? So various people started asking Bombosh to prove that this TV deal was legitimate. He started sending them one-page documents. Here, it's better off if I just read it. It says, when asked to prove the deal was legitimate, Bombosh sent me part of an undated, unsigned contract, allegedly between NBS, that would be NBS Sport Television Limited, and Soft Ground Wrestling Uganda. I informed him that this single page proved nothing. It provided no terms, no time frame, and no signatures. Bombosh then sent me another page, presumably the final page of the contract. It listed miscellaneous terms regarding a memorandum of understanding. There were legitimate places for CEO of NBS and the chief legal officer of the same company. And it says he was Daniel Bombosh himself was listed as the managing director of Soft Ground Wrestling Uganda. And he says, I bluntly asked Bombosh if he was lying about a contract being signed, as he was unable to provide one. Bombosh replied, quote, they gave me this to read, and after I shall send it you, everything once we agree on the exact time. Everything is well and being worked on. That was the draft they gave me by email. This is what the guy is telling various people to this about this deal, supposedly. So there was no contract, and Cassidy Haynes rightfully said there was no contract. There was nothing happening. So then they get into whether Soft Ground Wrestling is even a real entity. And I'm going to save you all the dry information here, but it's pretty clear that Body Slam, or Cassidy Haynes, did some digging to find out whether Soft Ground Wrestling Uganda was even a legitimately licensed wrestling company. Turns out it is not. It is not even a legitimately licensed company in the country of Uganda. So then he started saying it was a wrestling school. So that ends up being more legitimate. It says the documents establish Bombash Wrestling Academy Limited as a company limited by guarantee. So it's a nonprofit in Uganda. And according to the documents, it has not yet been fully completed as a running nonprofit in Uganda. So it's been filed as a nonprofit. So it doesn't seem like it has been fully completed. So it says there does not appear to be a valid certificate. It's not legit. So he did a search for Bombash Wrestling Academy, could not find it. Does not have one. It does not exist. He says these details are important as it means that all the assets, including the cash donations, contracts, and agreements, are in the personal name of Bumba Daniel Cedric rather than Bombash Wrestling Academy, as they should be if this was a valid tax exempt nonprofit. That is, after all, the whole point of forming the company. As it stands, nobody can stop Bombash from walking away with everything, short of the authorities charging him with some type of crime. Now, I'm not sure what Ugandan law is on nonprofits, but I'm pretty sure you have to be registered. If there's a registry, then you have to be registered, right? So this company is not even registered. Soft ground wrestling doesn't even really exist. And now they're saying it's a wrestling school, and the wrestling school doesn't really even exist. So this is insane, bro. This is insane. So Mansour, his mother, bought them a van because they were supposed to get a van. Apparently, it didn't happen, so she bought the van, right? But the van was registered to Bombash personally, so you can almost bet what's about to happen here. Some weird stuff is about to happen, right? So they do mention that some of the staff and some of the wrestlers are pretty under the spell of Bombash. It says, quote, the same source stated that there are people in SGW who appear to be in a cult-like trance and are vehemently pro-Bombash and believe everything he says, even when you point out that they are obvious lies. Others who have not fallen under Bombash's spell have pulled no punches and talked candidly with fans and some in the wrestling media about their personal experiences with SJW's leader as the threats and strong arming over access to the donated money continued to boil over. So he swears that he never lied about anything. So then he claims on June 4th that SGW students and talent had gone to, quote, donate to the poor and disabled people using wrestling as an umbrella. And these were trips that were supposedly made in the van purchased by Mansour's mom. He says a month later, a charitable organization known as Nova Talent Elevation Africa responded to news reports on SGW using the van to feed the poor. They stated the information and content shared in the above post belongs only to Nova Talent Elevation Africa, and we have no business relationship with SGW Wrestling Uganda. He said the photos used were from a TikTok event in 2023, and the van was not the same van purchased with the funds from Mansour's mother. So this guy got a van from Mansour's mom and apparently traded it in and got rid of it. Now, he claims he never lied. He claims he didn't lie and that he hasn't done anything, right? So it says A source within SGW also noted that the idea that the organization was a haven for orphans and homeless kids was largely a myth. Bombosh was running a business but presenting it to the potential financial backers as a charity designed to help the poor and orphaned youth of Uganda. He says a more than significant number of the SGW wrestlers are actually adults. Many of them are not homeless or even orphans. In his own YouTube videos, Bombosh advertised that there is a fee to train at soft ground wrestling. It's about 40 US dollars or 150,000 UGX or Ugandan shillings. I'm just going to use the American dollar. So about $40 to train at this facility. 150,000 shillings is a lot. That sounds like a lot, brother. So then he takes it to the next level, which I really appreciate. He says, according to UNESCO, the average monthly wage for Ugandan workers with no education in 2019 is $25 US. So it costs $40 to train at the facility, but the average worker only makes $25 in Uganda. So there's no way that unemployed homeless orphans are the wrestlers at soft ground wrestling. This is insane, bro. This dude is a top tier con artist. All right. He's a con artist on a different level. This is sickening. He then says Bombosh, quote, admitted that he is making the students pay for food and to stay at the training facility, where donated money was used to purchase around 100 beds and to pay the rent. Bombosh has provided some receipts to validate this, but the source, who is familiar with the prices and currency in Uganda, said that the cost was inflated by something approaching 50%. So he sent them some receipts that he actually spent some of the money on beds and foods, but the prices were approaching 50% higher than they should be. So likely he pocketed the money. So then Cassidy Haynes rightly asks, why would he have students pay for their own food and, training stuff? And Bombosh says, quote, some of them who are not orphans pay $1.50 for purchase of toilet paper, electricity bills, rent for their dormitories, water bills, soap for cleaning. The $1.50 is for those who are not orphans, and it is paid weekly, hence they pay for small household bills. They did this since last year. He says that they did not mention the $40 fee that he mentioned in the previous video. This is insane. So Haynes writes, presuming that is a one-time fee, SGW is helping orphans to the tune of charging them $118 for the first year and $78 for each additional year. All of this to pay for things that other people have already paid for. These people are, about 30 years ago or so, there used to be tons of commercials. You probably still see them with starving African children with flies all over their face. You don't see them as much anymore. You don't see these commercials as much anymore. But back when I was a kid, I used to see them all the time. All the time. I used to see these starving African kids with their bellies poked out, ribs showing, and you would feel so bad for them. You feel awful, bro. You feel terrible for these kids. And then I grew up and I started seeing what's behind all of these charities. And you find out there's a very well, let me finish my thought. You find out that a lot of that money never actually reaches the kid. It really just kind of goes into the pockets of warlords. There is a book called Stop Helping Us. There's many Africans who discuss how international aid is just pocketed by warlords and government officials, just put it in their pocket. Now, this is not exactly the same thing. It's similar. Like I said, wrestling companies are known for being quite corrupt. There was a wrestling company that was corrupt in the UK a couple of months ago, right? But this strikes me as particularly sad because of how many people got involved with it. Usually when a wrestling company is a scam, you don't get the WWE champion in on it. It's very, very rare that you would get, somebody like Cody Rhodes wrapped up in this thing. And so we're looking at this situation and we're saying to ourselves, everybody is trying to help because they see Africa as a poor country and they see these are kids who don't have a lot of resources. So they're trying to do the best they can. And what they end up doing is making this guy rich. They send him a ton of money and he's doing little things here and there and then pocketing the rest. And then lying about the process and the progress of the company. Goes right back to a lot of the international aid issues when it comes to Africa. It's partly why Africa is in the situation that it's in. There is so much duplicitous nature to some Africans. There's a reason why they always talk about scamming Nigerians. It's a stereotype, but the hustle is real in Africa, man. They're about the buck. So he discusses briefly whether these guys get money for T-shirts or not. Some of them, the guy known as Cool Man, supposedly gets $10 per shirt purchase. And the idea would be that Cool Man was to go to Japan to learn how to wrestle, but of course he never made that trip. It never occurred. So he goes back to the van. So we go back to the van. It says the well-documented abuse practices of Bambash Daniel are not just limited to verbal diatribes of passive-aggressive rants to his friends. SGW insiders have shared multiple stories with plenty of evidence that Bambash has actively put trainees in dangerous positions. The generous donation of a van by Mansour's mother was lauded by Bambash as a boon for the future of soft ground wrestling. The van could be used to evangelize their movements all over Africa. Bambash spoke of international travel to places like Kenya and made claims of ongoing charity work, which have already been established as completely fabricated. Oh boy. So they talk about the vehicle, and they mentioned that the white Toyota Hayase, which was given to soft ground wrestling, it turns out that the license plate changed over time. Yeah. So he was confronted that people are noticing there was a different license plate on the car or the van, sorry. And Bambash explains, it says he wanted to exchange the vehicle for a minibus with a bed, roof rack, and a ladder at the back, and in a different color, green. Other sources pointed out that he claimed there were unspecified engine problems with the first van. And then he says, we're handling it. She paid $10,000. Well, no, he paid $10,000 for the second van. The second van was $10,000 US, I should say. So he likely sold the first one in order to buy the second one, right? Which he pretty much admitted to when he said he wanted to get it in a different color with beds and all that kind of stuff, right? A minibus. He says the second van, ostensibly for the use of transporting soft ground wrestlers from place to place, does not even have a back seat, according to those affiliated with the group. It doesn't even have a back seat. He said trainees can be seen sitting in the back of the minibus, leaning against the walls, with no available seat belts, and groceries and supplies strewn all over the floor. Further accounts from people who have traveled with Bumbash indicated that they noticed him drinking vodka while driving to pick up or drop off some of the international guests. Whether Bumbash ever drank alcohol while driving SGW students could not be confirmed. You know, it's weird that they still continue to call them students. It's interesting to even call them students at this point in time. You know, that's that's insane. That is insane. Why are you calling them students? These are Bumbash himself has no training. So how is he training anybody else? He is not a wrestler. I guess that's the more appropriate way to go about it. You know, to refer to them as trainees, I guess that's the best way to do it. It's the nicest way to do it. But we've already established that everybody involved with this thing is an adult, and that Bumbash himself has no training. So apparently, there was a bunch of students that got arrested. 20 SGW wrestlers and administrators were arrested, and they got arrested for malicious damage of property and arson on a mass scale. A mass scale. This is insane. This is insane, bro. So apparently they were working on some land that a Bombash associate claimed was purchased for $2,000 or $2,400 US, and that the students were working at the direction of Bombash on constructing some buildings for the land. At some point, after leaving the TV shoot, a contingent from the Uganda police force showed up, and everybody was arrested. So a German television crew was apparently there. They were building something and ended up getting arrested. This is he said, quote, an unknown number of those arrested spent at least one night behind bars. A Bombas associate revealed that the SGW boss promised to pay to have everybody's records wiped clean. What? It is unclear whether this meant he was paying a bribe or that bond was paid and charges were dropped. It was never explained how arson charges fit into the story. Right. What did they set on fire? What did they set on fire? What were they doing? And why were they doing that? The story doesn't even make sense. They claimed they were working on the property that they owned, and they all got picked up and arrested. That doesn't make sense. You get arrested for working on your own property? That doesn't make sense. What were they doing? We'll never know because everybody that's looking at this thing is American. Have no idea what's going on in Uganda. So that's pretty much the entirety of the story. It is very well done. I was very impressed with Cassidy Haynes of BodySlam.net. But I never really talked about soft ground wrestling because it was a lot like the Walmart wrestling, where it was a fad that people talked about. You saw a lot about it, and then suddenly it just stopped. Like Walmart wrestling was a thing that happened for quite a while, and then it just stopped. Right? You don't see people do Walmart wrestling anymore. What happened to those guys? Remember, they was getting booked at indie shows. They weren't scamming. They was just going into Walmart getting into trouble. But in these situations, this was a whole goddamn scam. It's legitimately embarrassing. You have no idea. See, what my degree is public administration, which is, part of it is nonprofits. One of the biggest issues with nonprofits is that they tend to be scams. They tend to be scams quite often. There's an issue about where the money goes, how effective the nonprofit is, the materials that they get, the quality of the materials, et cetera, et cetera. And this is where you get, certain people believing that certain nonprofits overpay the CEOs, or they spend too much money on marketing, or they spend too much money on this or that. It's very hard to oversee, very, very hard to oversee nonprofits. It's hard to do that in the United States. So just imagine how difficult it would be if you're trying to oversee a nonprofit that's in Uganda. That's very difficult. It's damn near impossible. Now in the United States, a lot of that stuff have to be, filed with courts. Whether it's a was it 501c3 or a 501c4, and all that kind of stuff. What kind is it? A political nonprofit? Is it a civil rights organization? Is it a civil service, a public service, whatever? What are you trying to do? Is it scientific in nature? Like a lot of the breast cancer awareness organizations and stuff like this. Where's the source about this? It's at bodyslam.net. So bodyslam.net did the article, and they source a lot of the information that they utilize. Some of it is from interviews. Some of it is from, when they're looking at what Bombash himself is saying. Either they talk to him via text, or they have something else there. But there's an extensive amount of citations. There's 25 citations. A lot of it is, Twitter, um, newspapers, different wrestling sites. They made the claim that they talked to Bombash personally. It seems to be on the up and up. Now, I do question quite often wrestling media, and typically when you have one-on-one conversations with a guy, and they did do that. They actually mentioned that they, spoke to him via text or email or whatever. And there's no way to cite that except for in the body of the. Well, I guess you depending on what kind of style you're using, but you really kind of quote that in the body of the paper, which is what they did. They quoted, hey, I talked to him via email, I talked to him via text or whatever. But it's bodyslam.net. They are the ones who did the article. It's pretty long though. And I skimmed through it. It still took me almost 40 minutes. You ask me, why do I take wrestling serious? I do not take wrestling that serious. You must not. You must be new to the channel. I do not take wrestling serious at all. I talk about wrestling like it's fiction, because it is fiction, and therefore I talk about it in the way I would talk about any other TV show. Um, baby faces and heels, the characters, and all that kind of stuff. You got to give me something to work with. Now, as most people talk about, if you talk about movies, you talk about the business of movies. You talk about the actors, what took place in the movie, etc. I talk about wrestling the exact same way. It's been a while since I yelled about anything wrestling. I think the last time I really got mad at a wrestling show was probably when the Fiend lost to Goldberg. No, it was when the Fiend lost to Seth Rollins, I believe. That was the last time I really got mad at a wrestling show. That was the last time I really yelled about a wrestling show on this channel. I told myself I was not going to be like uh, some of the other guys who take this stuff a little too seriously. I just talk about what I enjoy and what I don't enjoy, things that I've seen. No different than any other kind of critic. But back to this situation. It's truly sad because there was a lot of goodwill wrapped around soft ground, and a lot of people was very interested in it. If Kamala and Kimchi were around, they wouldn't stand for this corruption. Oh man, just imagine if he was still young enough to do this. You know, um, wasn't Kimchi Bruce Pritchard? I think he was Bruce Pritchard. I might be wrong on that. It might have been somebody. It might have been Steve Lombardi. It might have been the Brooklyn Brawler because he had 1,000 gimmicks at the time. So I think it might have been the Brooklyn Brawler instead. So that was the main story I had for tonight. Jim Cornette, he was what? He certainly was not Kimchi. Why would he be Kimchi? He was already on the show as the manager for Bulldog and Owen and all them. Was he there? Yeah, he was there for that. He was there for Kamala and all that. Yeah. So it's an interesting scenario, brother. Kevin Abreu says, my only issue about wrestling fan is sending death threats to people they don't know real life. You shouldn't send death threats to people you know, let alone people you don't know. Just don't send death threats. How about that? Just don't do it. It's not a good idea. Just don't do it. It's not good. It's not going to work out well for you. Will there be a season 2 of Q&A? Eventually, yes. I probably will start it again maybe next month. You gotta remember. I gotta remember to do these things. You know. Sometimes I just get on here and just start doing stuff. So that's how it is, man. It's hilarious though. It says yes. At first he was Kimchi, then Steve Lombardi was. Okay, so who we talking about here? You saying Jim Cornette was Kimchi first, and then it was Steve Lombardi? Mm, I never heard that Jim Cornette was Kimchi. I never heard that. Where did you get that from? Where did that come from? Did Jim Cornette himself say that? Huh. I'm very interested in that. Why would he do something so stupid? He walked around in a mask? That's hilarious. That's hilarious. Tomorrow, there's going to be a video up on Napoleon blown apart, and he's going to do a video on Brock Lesnar that is no doubt going to be hilarious. no doubt, is going to be absolutely fantastic. I cannot wait. I've been really putting over his MMA videos. I strongly suggest everybody get ready for how hilarious this video is going to be. I could tell already it's going to be crazy. Would you get bored of Gunther's title run? Well, it depends. You know, it just started, so nothing's happened yet. But if it's boring, it's boring. That's really what it boils down to, as far as I'm concerned. But we gotta wait and see. I'm about to look up whether Jim Cornette was kimchi or not. I'm about to do that on the spot. So pray for me to see how this works out. Because I'm very interested in this. Kimchi Kamala. Um, it says Steve Lombardi. Yeah, it says Steve Lombardi. It doesn't say Jim Cornette at all. Yeah, it wouldn't make sense for it to be Jim Cornette, but then again, maybe they're wrong. Maybe they're wrong. Steve Lombardi as the wrestler, yes. Yeah, I don't see there anywhere that Jim Cornette was kimchi. At the time, they were giving really crazy gimmicks to Steve Lombardi. Man, he was doing everything. He was there for 33 years, bro. 33 years. It says that he had a handler named Friday that was played by Frank Dalton. That's what it says on Wikipedia. But Wikipedia, mm, uh, let's look at the citations. Breaking Kayfabe with Kamala from Slam Wrestling 2001. It talked about his life, James Harris, debuted in 1978. Still don't see that Jim. I don't know. I'm putting a lot of work in. I'm putting a lot of work in to prove this, and I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it at all. Well, I heard Lashley was backstage at AEW. I heard, oh my god, I don't know if there was any. I think he's still under contract. You said that his contract expires next week. Oh, this week he's a free agent. Oh, I don't know. Maybe he goes back to TNA. Speaking of TNA, I heard they coming to Detroit. There's a couple of venues that if they come to this town, I will be there. And they're supposed to be coming here for Bound for Glory, which is their version of WrestleMania. So if Impact comes or TNA comes to Detroit, your boy will be there. I'm going. I've never been to a TNA show, so I'm very interested in going. If they go to a decent facility that is easily accessible by me, I may even go to the TV tapings if they're nearby. So if it's not like in Ann Arbor or in the middle of nowhere, I probably will go. But they love saying that they're going to be in Detroit and then they're in Troy. Or they're going to be in Detroit and they're in Ypsilanti instead. You know, if they're like running Kobo, I'll be there. Well, the former Kobo. It's not Kobo anymore. One of the guys, I think his name is Levy Margolin. He suggested maybe the Fillmore, which I think that rules. The Masonic Temple, that rules too. It's a great facility. So that would be great. WG Phil says for the September pay-per-view, watch along. Would it be Payback 2020 for Roman's heel run anniversary, or it'll be No Mercy? There's no main roster pay-per-view to do anniversary watch-alongs. I'm sure there was a big show or some kind of show, even if it's a freak show, to watch in September at some point. I'll probably have to do some digging. Maybe it has to be WCW or something. What was the WCW pay-per-view for September? I don't know. I don't know what the September pay-per-view is for WCW. I don't know anything about behind. Well, it wasn't Slamboree, was it? If WWW had balls, they would send Nigerian Prince, Apollo Crews, and Commander Aziz to help his African brethren out. They should send the warlord Obafemi to make sense of all this. The human mountain. What Jonathan see problem with Mercedes Monet? He's jealous of her. It was Fall Brawl? Okay, Fall Brawl. That's not a bad one. Maybe I'll check out Fall Brawl. Fall Brawl with the 3-ring Rumble, the 3-ring Battle Royal. All right. Maybe the first one. Maybe the first Fall Brawl. What year was that? 93? I think Fall Brawl was the first one. No, the first Fall Brawl was a Clash of the Champions. So it had to be the pay-per-view Fall Brawl. So I'll look into it. So it may be WCW. But I do know that the first Fall Brawl was Clash of the Champions. That was a TV special because I watched all the Fall Brawls. I don't think Jonathan Coachman is jealous of Mercedes. I think he just doesn't like her, which is kind of how people work. Sometimes they just don't like each other. But she's not doing herself any favors. She's being real bad at her job at this point, and people are starting to notice it. And she did a promo on Twitter or something like that was absolutely no good. And it's legit sad. It's legit bad. It was legit terrible. I don't know why she did that. She told everybody to go outside and play, touch grass and all this, which is fine. I mean, I ain't mad at it. I think sometimes that's what people have to do. Sometimes people have to go outside. Oh man. All right, so that's pretty much it for me. Thank you guys for stopping by. Appreciate it. Do I think it's time for Trick to jump to main event? Maybe Trick Mello together again. No, he hasn't done anything by himself yet. He still has to do his own thing. That was World War III with 3 rings. Didn't Fall Brawl have the 3 rings too? I could have swore he did. Fall Brawl don't have the 3-ring event. That's his own pay-per-view. That's going to be well. I don't like the 3-ring battle royal anyway, but I guess I'll check it out. We'll try to figure out which Fall Brawl it is. World War III had it. Okay. See, I really do need to bone up on my WCW. My WCW is not good. I know more about Jim Crockett Promotions than I know about WCW. which is still not a lot. But I don't really got much more to talk about. So World War III, that was the November pay-per-view because Starrcade was December. So what was let's see, January was no, what was Super Brawl? Super Brawl was in February. No, Super Brawl was in January. It might have got moved between February and January. And then they had Sold Out, which was in February. It was February, March. I forget what comes after Sold Out because I don't know what their April pay-per-view was. I think Spring Stampede might have been, or Road Wild might have been the May, June one. No, the June one I'm pretty sure was Great American Bash. July was Bash at the Beach. No, October clearly was Halloween Havoc, which Bearshaw said was their big pay-per-view, even though it should have been Starrcade, but whatever. September, y'all are telling me is Fall Brawl, so that means World War III had to be November. Fall Brawl had 2 rings. War Games. There it is. Okay. I knew something was up. It's War Games. All right. Yeah. Okay. So Fall Brawl, War Games. All right. So I knew I was gonna fiddle around until I figured it out. All right. So Fall Brawl was War Games. All right. I don't want to watch a War Games match. I don't want to watch a War Games match. I really don't. I hate War Games, bro. I do not want to watch a War Games match. He said, people remember when Mercedes turned heel, her promo will be good. Well, I think everybody thought that it would be. It turns out we were all wrong. We were all just really, really wrong. I thought she was a good promo. But I said she kind of sucked from 2021 forward because she went on her hiatus. Vince gave her a ton of money, and she came back worse than she left. Like if you looked at her promos before, they weren't great, but they weren't this bad. These are just no good. Just 100% not good. Okay? These are not good. I don't want to watch a War Games match. I know I said that already. I'm saying it again. I don't want to watch a War Games match. The only one I will want to, no, nope, because I just watched the Horsemen versus the NWO. I watched that 2 or 3 months ago. So I just messed around and watched it. So if September is Fall Brawl, then that probably won't be it. It'll probably have to be something else. Because if I have to watch a War Games match, I'm gonna pull my hair out. I'll be super bored. Let's see. Fall Brawl, Road Wild. Road Wild was what month? Sturgis. Uncensored. Uncensored was their February show, then, right? Hey, I think Uncensored was their February show. Spring Stampede, Slamboree. Slamboree was terrible. And there was no good Slamborees, bro. What a 93, I think 93 and 94. It had a theme though. Like Slamboree had the theme was like the past and the future working together or something like that. There's virtually no good Slamboree shows. Like, all of these joints were terrible. Wrestle War wasn't a thing in the 90s. Oh, Chi-Town Rumble, 1989. Flair Steamboat. What month was this? Maybe it doesn't have any dates. See, that's the unfortunate thing. Is the Damien project over? He had a pretty good run and more enjoyable than Cody's otherwise. I disagree. I don't think he was that great as champion. I think it's just getting started, really. I think losing the title has made him more over. But the way Triple H books, he is now out of title contention for the foreseeable future, and he's not likely to win it back. So, at least not anytime soon. But I hope it's not. I hope not. You know, I think he could. I think he's got potential to be another top guy. You know, the thing is, he's got that age thing going for him. I don't know if it's going for him or if it's working against him, but he has the opportunity to go on a run of a lifetime with Finn Balor. You know, so both of these guys are in their 40s. They have the opportunity to really cement themselves in WWE at this point. You getting 2 War Game matches one night, crazy. Yeah, that's real dumb. Why they stopped Mr. McMahon giveaway free money TV? Because it wasn't working. And it did. The ratings really wasn't popping anymore. I think it worked like the first couple of times they did it. That's when they was really desperate. Ugh, those were desperate days. You got to get the ratings up. So Vince is going to give away money. But they used to do giveaways all the time. They used to give away cars. For the first couple of In Your Houses, they gave away houses. Speaking of In Your House, there has to be a September In Your House to watch. Maybe that might be a good deal. Maybe a September In Your House. I think Bad Blood was in September. I don't really want to watch that, but September In Your House 96. Oh, Mind Games. Mind Games was September 22nd, 1996. All right. Maybe Mind Games. Oh yeah, we already watched Bad Blood last year. Okay. So September 96 is Mind Games. That's a great match right there, brother. Looking through the card. Oh, I spoiled it for myself. Let's look at September 97. What's September 97? Ground Zero. Undertaker Shawn Michaels 1. September 98. What's that? Breakdown. I don't remember this show at all. I just remember, isn't this when they had Mankind and Ken Shamrock? If I remember correctly. In Your House, or there was no In Your House September 99. They had dropped the In Your House label by that point. Let's see. September 96. There was no. September 95 is In Your House 3 triple header. The two dudes with attitudes were in that interesting match. Interesting. Oh, I'm not watching. I just saw what the main event of Breakdown. I'm not watching that. I can't do it. That's the show that made me want to quit wrestling. I may actually watch it so I can go through that, but I may watch it because I haven't seen that match in a really long time. The Undertaker, Kane, Stone Cold Steve Austin handicap / triple threat match. But just real bad. But I guess we can continue this conversation in the Discord. Let me know what you guys are thinking about. Pitch some ideas. Breakdown is not bad. I haven't seen it in a long time. The entire show. Mind Games is good. I remember I ordered that show. I love Mind Games. Ground Zero is a really good show too. And then there might be a WCW pay-per-view. So pitch it in the Discord. You need to find a link to the Discord. It should be in the description. I'll put it in the description of every video. So go to a video, go to the description, and there's a bunch of links down there. You have a link to the Discord there. Feel free to join in and say hello. Feel free to follow me on Twitter. Thanks everybody for your free time. I'll talk to you guys later.